Guys, Kate here. Thanks for tuning in today for my Intuitive Eating Virtual Workshop, Episode 5. Reject the Diet Mentality. Today is Wednesday, February 28th, 2018. And I'm so excited that you're tuning in because I have so many great nuggets to share with you today. Just before I go on, the landscapers are probably going to come right in the middle of my video, so we might have complete chaos going on around me. I hope that doesn't happen, but if it does, I apologize in advance. And also, before I go any further, my usual disclaimer that these workshops are for informational and educational purposes only, and they're not meant to take the place of any advice you get from your healthcare practitioner. Okay, so today we're here to talk about Principle 1 of Intuitive Eating as created by Tribole and Resch. You see that book? It's weird to get it centered. This is the book that I keep referring to. It doesn't fit in the screen. That's Intuitive Eating by Evelyn Tribole and Elyse Resch. And that Principle 1 is reject the diet mentality. So first off, what is the diet mentality? Let's start by defining a diet. Now, a diet, in the cultural sense, the way that it's most commonly used, is different from your diet. And what do I mean by that? Well, what we would call your diet is the foods you typically eat. For example, somebody might say, I follow a vegetarian diet, or I eat a diet of mostly vegetables and fish. But when we refer to going on a diet, the word diet means a special course of food to which one restricts oneself, either to lose weight or for medical reasons, as in I'm going on a diet. And another definition is to restrict oneself to small amounts or special kinds of food in order to lose weight. Or like we would say, it's difficult to be on a diet, or it's so hard to stick to this diet. So the diet mentality is the mindset we get into when we are restricting ourselves in any way in order to change the way our body looks. And the diet mentality is sneaky. It seeps into our lives through the media, where we constantly see and hear suggestions that we should look a certain way in order to find love, have more romance in our relationship, fit in with the right crowd, fit the bathing suit, feel confident on the beach, you name it. The media is constantly telling us that we need to look a certain way, therefore we need to diet, or we're not going to be allowed, or we shouldn't feel like we're allowed to do those things. It also sneaks in through the food police, and that's something we'll cover in the next coming weeks. But the food police, some examples of the food police would be your mother, or insert whoever, who told you better hurry up and lose that baby weight or it'll stick forever. Or the coworkers whose commentary you can always count on when lunch gets ordered in, like, oh, you're so good, you only took salad. Or your friend at brunch who eyes your mimosa with both distrust and envy. It's really hard to escape messages about dieting, and when we spend much of our time thinking about or worrying over our food, that becomes our mentality. So if your choices have ever been based on an effort to change your body's appearance, to lose weight, for example, to shed fat, or to reduce your pant size, then you were in the diet mentality when you were making those choices. And if you've been on multiple diets throughout your life, then you have spent quite a bit of time in the diet mentality. And if you're someone who, quote unquote, works very hard on your appearance, then you're probably deeply entrenched in the diet mentality. And if you have hit dieting rock bottom, which I did not too long ago, which is you just can't do this anymore, but you don't know what else to do, and you've decided to try out this idea that diets don't work, and you want to learn the practice of intuitive eating, then you need to learn to reject the diet mentality, or intuitive eating is never going to work for you, because as long as your mind keeps going to that place, which is the diet mentality, and I'm sorry I keep using that phrase over and over again, but as long as your mind keeps going to that place, you're never going to be free to just listen to your body. But that's really easier said than done, rejecting the diet mentality, because when you stop to think about it, you might notice that while the idea of never dieting again while somewhat intriguing and a little thrilling. And, oh my God, you mean I never have to count calories or carbs or worry about it or think about it again? It can actually feel downright scary, and it's actually really, really hard to do. So here are some common fears that Tribole and Resch cite in their book. And again, for the people who just joined, I'm referring to Intuitive Eating by Tribole and Resch. And they cite these fears, and then they kind of counter them with the realities that are backed up by studies that they go over in the book. And if you want to read all those, they're in there. But these are the common fears, commonalities that they've noticed in their clients. And as dietitians, they've seen hundreds and hundreds of clients. So these are fears they've heard when they first introduced the concept of never restricting again to their clients. People feared that if they stopped dieting, they'll never stop eating, when in reality, dieting is often the trigger for overeating. Their clients feared that they wouldn't know what to eat when they weren't dieting. But in reality, when you truly become an intuitive eater, your body will guide your eating. You'll never need to be told again what to eat or what to leave out. Their clients were afraid that if they stopped dieting, they'd become completely out of control in all areas of their life, not just their food intake. But in reality, control is an illusion, and that's not something that a lot of people think about or even want to hear, especially control freaks or perfectionists like me. But intuitive eating has nothing to do with control. So one of the things that helped me most was if you try to think of it this way. Just as you don't need to tell your body to take a breath, your body takes care of that function completely on its own, and it never lets you down unless it's interfered with. So too can your body be left to govern your food intake. And if that sounds impossible to you, then that's probably a good sign that you're deeply entrenched in the diet mentality. Hey guys, we had a bunch of people just join us, so thank you for joining today. But trust me, you were born with the inherent ability to know what to eat. You just lost that ability somewhere along the way, and intuitive eating is how you get it back. So through intuitive eating, you'll learn to trust your body and your intuition, and there's nothing to control, so you don't need to be afraid of being out of control. So when we prepare to reject the diet mentality, we might face some of these fears, and we might feel a little lost because of something that Tribole and Resch call the diet void. So what is the diet void? For many people, dieting is a way of life. It's how they spend most of their free time. Meal planning and counting calories or carbs or sugar grams, or getting ready for the next one, or reading about this on Pinterest and making little charts and getting a new notebook and getting all the tools. Frequent dieters schedule their days and weeks and even months and whole seasons, or time leading up to a vacation, or time leading up to a high school or college reunion, or the big event in your life. They schedule these things around their dieting plans. And when you give up dieting, poof, you might have to figure out another way to fill your time. And that might feel a little scary to somebody who often feels lonely or doesn't have many hobbies or gets bored easily. So they have to figure out how to fill that void when they give up dieting. Another void that's created is diets offer hope and excitement to a lot of people. We get to plan outfits and trips, and we fantasize about life in our new body. But when you stop dieting, where does your hope come from now? How do you find excitement in your lives? That's another void we might experience. Another thing, there's also diet bonding that occurs between friends, relatives, coworkers, and in Facebook groups. A lot of us are familiar with that, especially if we're Beachbody members, like I am a coach. We cheer each other on, we share our meal plans and photos, and we commend each other on sticking to the plan or pushing through those cravings. And what are we to talk about with those people that relationship is only based on our diet bonding if we ditch our diets? So these are all some examples of voids, spaces that open up where we don't know how to act. We don't know how to fill our time. We don't know what to talk about with certain people when we take dieting out of the picture. I mean, I can think of one person in my life who our relationship is so awkward that the only thing we ever talk about is what we're doing right now, fitness wise. And when you take that out of the relationship, it's kind of like, why are we here together? And so when you have these voids, you are left figuring out how to move forward. But here's another catch. And if you're somebody who's always relied on food as a coping mechanism, and you're specifically trying not to use food to deal with your feelings, then how do you deal with the difficult nature of moving through these voids? It's very difficult, and that's why you might need to call upon someone like me, a health coach or a therapist or a dietitian that focuses on intuitive eating to work through some of this stuff, because it can be really, really hard when you take away your crutch, which is food or eating, or some people call it emotional eating. That's a term that's kind of up for discussion right now in this community. But if you take that away, then what's to help you through the difficult feelings that arise when you're taking that crutch away? So that's the dieting void, all the spaces that are created in our lives when we stop dieting. What else might we encounter when we reject the diet mentality, which again is the first principle of intuitive eating? Well, there's the one last diet trap, and I bet a lot of us are really familiar with that. That's the little voice that says, hey, this intuitive eating sounds really awesome, and I love the idea of never dieting again, but I'm not quite happy with my body yet, and I can't give up until I'm where I want to be. So I'm going to do this one last diet, and then I'll work through all the other stuff. To get yourself out of the one last diet trap, you really need to wrap your head around the fact that dieting doesn't work, and it can, in fact, be harmful. And that's something I'm going to talk about in the next coming weeks, but I'm just trying to keep these short. I'm already to 12 minutes, geez. Another thing we might encounter when we reject the diet mentality is pseudo-dieting, and this is something that I'm going to talk about when I talk about the issue with Weight Watchers, opening their program up to young people. When we are what is pseudo-dieting? When we're pretty confident that we've given up dieting, but we've really just substituted it for other diet-like behaviors. These behaviors are things like meticulously, or not meticulously, but counting carbohydrate grams, following a meal plan prescribed along with an exercise regime, one that purposely causes a calorie deficit, eating only safe foods, foods you don't feel tempted to binge on or might feel out of control having around. Eating only at certain times of day, like I don't eat before 10 a.m. or I don't eat after 6 p.m. A lot of people call that intermittent fasting, and intermittent fasting was actually designed as a means of increasing energy. A lot of C-level executives use intermittent fasting. And sometimes I would have the opinion that that's okay because the purpose of doing it is not for weight loss. But if you're somebody that struggles with this, then I wouldn't, sneaking intermittent fasting into your life is just another way that you're pseudo-dieting, basically. Paying penance for eating bad foods, cutting back on food, especially when leading up to a special event or saving up for a big meal. Pacifying hunger with diet soda or coffee. A lot of ladies I know do that. They grab that afternoon coffee or diet soda to tide themselves over till evening, when really probably the healthier thing to do would either be sit down, rest, do some deep breathing, take a nap, or have a snack if you're hungry and your energy is dipping. But just trying to kill your hunger cravings with caffeine is not a great idea. Putting on a false food face in public, or eating only what is proper in front of others. Competing with someone else who's dieting, because dieting is often viewed as virtuous. We attempt to be good. We're being good. Or I was so bad. It kind of becomes a competition. That's what I was alluding to with the diet bonding we do. This is rhetoric that we get into people that we have that kind of relationship with. I was so good. I was so bad. Second guessing or judging what you deserve to eat based on what you've eaten earlier that day. Like, I couldn't be hungry already. I had a huge breakfast. How could I be hungry? Or, I shouldn't need a snack. I already ate a big meal at lunch. Well, if your stomach is hungry, then that's your body telling you something. It has nothing to do with should or shouldn't or what you deserve to eat or whatever. We're not keeping tally here. Becoming a vegetarian or vegan or going gluten-free for the purpose of losing weight, that is a very, very tricky one. Even PETA has gotten some very bad press because they ran a huge campaign where they had pictures. The worst one that I saw was a picture on the back of a bus where like the picture was the rear view window of the bus, and it was the silhouette of a very heavy man, the back of a very heavy man, and the whole bus looked like it was tilted because he was so large that he was making the bus tilt down on one side, and they were using that as, I guess, motivation to get people to become vegans. And that's fat phobia. That's I'll talk about that next week, but somebody might see that and say, oh, well, if I'm overweight, I'll just go vegan and then I'll lose weight and I'm not dieting. That's good for the environment. I'm saving the animals, when really you weren't doing it for altruistic reasons. You were doing it because you wanted to lose weight. So those are all examples of pseudo dieting. Other things, sometimes the paleo diet or the keto diet, those were designed also for very specific purposes. Did you know the ketogenic diet was designed to help children with epilepsy, when now people are just using it to shred fat? And that's a whole other story. But sometimes those can turn into methods of pseudo dieting. So they're all just behaviors of diets in disguise. So how do we reject the diet mentality? And it's already almost 17 minutes. So I'm getting up there on time. I'm only going to gloss over these steps because I just keep talking. But as always, feel free to contact me. We can set up an initial consultation, figure out what your specific issues are, and go from there. And remember, becoming an intuitive eater is not a quick fix. It's not something you do to lose weight and then stop. It's not about losing weight. You have to give up this illusion that your weight is something you can control. Your weight is not under your control. It's under the control of your body. And the more you try to interfere, the more you will suffer. I guess what I'm really trying to drive home is that the whole point of making reject the diet mentality the first principle of intuitive eating is that you need to overcome this mentality that weight loss is the solution to all your problems, that weight loss will make you healthier. Because really, truly, it's just the opposite. You need to work on you. And once you get yourself back in balance, if you are carrying extra weight, that weight will come off if it's meant to. If you have other problems in your life, like you're unhappy in your marriage, or you hate your job, or you have unfulfilling relationships, you're not spiritually satisfied, you don't have a creative outlet, you feel anxious a lot of time, you worry about money, then you have to come to a place where you can accept that losing weight won't fix those problems. Our body, for a lot of people, is just something that we focus on to avoid dealing with all that other stuff and to avoid feeling the feelings that are related to all those other imbalances in our life. And if we work on fixing our true problems, then we'll probably most likely not turn to food anymore to fulfill unmet needs. If you have some chronic unhealthy lifestyle habits, like you don't eat enough vegetables or drink enough water, or you have a Diet Coke addiction, again, I know a lot of ladies that love that Diet Coke, and I'm not one to say, like, let's throw anything out, but if we could throw anything out, I would ditch the Diet Coke. Or you don't sleep well, or you have acne. These are all behaviors or symptoms of a health imbalance. Losing weight won't solve these problems. No. Just the opposite. If you work on becoming well again, if you work on incorporating more healthful habits into your life, eating more greens, drinking more water, ditching the Diet Coke habit, eating more fruit, getting more sleep, moving your body more, it's likely that many of your other health issues will dissipate or your symptoms will ease some. Okay, so what you've all been waiting for, you're like, enough with the why, just tell me how to do this, Kate. So here it is, how to reject the diet mentality in 4 easy steps. And they're not easy, but I can lay them out pretty easily. I can help you work through them too. Step 1, recognize and acknowledge the damage that dieting causes. Now, I want you, if you have time to go back and listen to these facts that I'm going to read, I really want you to sit with them. They are medically documented facts. Try to wrap your mind around them. They are truths as opposed to the fantasies that the diet industry brainwashes us into believing. These are facts that they have captured scientifically by studying controlled groups of people. That dieting causes both biological and psychological damage. So what sorts of biological damage does dieting cause? First, chronic dieting teaches your body to retain more fat when you start eating again. That's because we evolved that way. It's a survival mechanism. And if we ever go through an ice age and there's famine, you're going to be happy for it. You'll be happy for all that extra padding. Chronic dieting slows your rate of weight loss. So the more you diet, the harder it is to lose weight. Your metabolism is actually decreased through the act of dieting. Dieting increases binges and cravings. There's another evolutionary reason for that I won't get into, but it's true. And dieting actually increases the risk of premature death and heart disease. Here's something I read this week, which really made me mad. I'll talk about this more next week during Fat Phobia, but some are suggesting that Carrie Fisher, Princess Leia, people are claiming that her death was accelerated by years of dieting that she was encouraged to endure to maintain a set point weight that was 35 pounds lower than where her body naturally wanted to be. The directors of all of the Star Wars movies, the original ones and the latest ones that she was in, they forced her to maintain that skinny little body to wear that metal bikini or whatever it's made out of. And then they made her lose weight if she wanted to have the role in the most recent movies. And then she died. Dieting causes satiety cues to atrophy. Those are your physical indications that you are full and satisfied. Yes, dieting kills those signals, so you just eat and don't ever feel full. So what you want to have happen, which is not want to eat, dieting actually causes the opposite to happen. Dieting causes your body shape to change. Chronic dieters are more likely to regain weight in their midsection, which is also particularly dangerous for your heart. So, as if all the bodily damage wasn't enough, let's add insult to injury and make ourselves crazy too, because dieting also causes psychological damage. Dieting is linked to an increase in incidence of eating disorders. It may cause stress or make the dieter more vulnerable to stress in their lives. And who doesn't have stress? Dieters become more vulnerable to quote unquote loss of control over eating when violating the rules of the diet. Sometimes the mere perception of eating a forbidden food is enough to trigger overeating. You may know this as the screw it phenomenon, even if you've never called it that, but it's like, I'm supposed to be on a diet, but I ate that thing, which is not on my diet. So screw it. I'll eat all the things now because I broke the diet. That's the screw it phenomenon. Other people call it the F it phenomenon, but I don't want Facebook to take me off. Dieting erodes self-trust and self-confidence. It convinces the dieter to place their trust in the rules or the product rather than in their own body. And this, to me, is the worst. Talk about psychological damage. It's been documented that many obese people truly believe that they could not have become obese unless they possess some fundamental character deficit. I mean, the fact that obese people think there's something fundamentally wrong with them, and so they deserve to be fat. That's why they got fat. That's just so sad. So that's step 1, recognize and acknowledge the damage. Step 2, be aware of diet mentality traits and thinking, which is learn to recognize when your brain is going there, when it's going to the diet mentality. So we're led to believe that losing weight is a matter of willpower and being obedient, that we should or shouldn't eat such and such, and if we disobey the rules, we're a failure. We need to become really mindful, really start noticing, so we can insert a different thought, tell ourselves a different story. For this reason, I might argue that step 2 is the hardest because it's really hard to change an ingrained thought pattern. It really takes conscious effort, but it's worth it. Step 3, get rid of the dieter's tools. This is my favorite because it's fun and I hate clutter. And to me, this one's the easiest, but to others it might be harder. It could be really hard for people who hate waste. But remember, you can always donate your devices of torture and let somebody else use them for their own biological and psychological downfall. So we want to throw out that scale or smash it with a hammer or give it to Goodwill or sell it on eBay, but vow never to step on it again. There is zero biological need or reason for you to know how much you weigh. Did you ever think about that? There's none. And when you go to the doctor, did you know that you don't have to be weighed unless you're being prescribed medication or having some other procedure where the science requires the doctor to know your precise poundage? In fact, you can outright refuse to step on the scale. Or if you're shy to speak up and you don't want to make an issue of it in that oh-so-public room where they make you stand on the scale, just turn your back to the number and ask the nurse not to say anything to you. Also, throw out your food scales and your portion control containers and your Weight Watchers books with points and diet magazines and diet cookbooks and delete all those tracking apps from your phone. These products are advertised as tools that are supposed to take the guesswork out of your meal preparation. And they really do work for people who have no emotional attachment to food. I'm not saying they're worthless or stupid. They are a good idea for people who don't have these issues. But the advertising says to people who have quote unquote disordered eating, just follow the rules, use the instruments and the weight will melt away. It's easy, it's guaranteed, but it's not supposed to work that way. Our human bodies are beautiful, complex, amazing organisms that are mostly self-regulating. We're not robots who need a precise amount of fuel day in and day out. Our needs change day to day, year to year, decade to decade, and there's no meal plan or point system that can calculate that need for you. You need to feel that need within yourself. If you do yoga today and you're taking it easy, your body might not call for as much energy input today or even tomorrow, but if you're hitting the HIIT workouts or you're doing CrossFit or something that's really super demanding, then you're going to need more fuel on the days or day after that you do those workouts because you're expending more energy. Or if you don't get that much sleep, then you may need a little extra power to get through life. That's the way it's supposed to be. And then your body will tell you, okay, I had enough. Let's scale back. I don't need so much tomorrow. And that is something that can become intuitive when you really, truly get to the heart of intuitive eating. So back to that step. If you just can't stand to be wasteful or throw out all that money you spent on all those things, then I want you to put all those dieting tools, anything you ever bought at the beginning of a new weight loss regime, pile them all up in your garage or an extra room or wherever and look at that pile and take a minute to think on just how much money you have poured into these endeavors. And then take a good hard look at yourself and ask yourself if you are any better off for having bought all those things. Are you happier? Are you more fulfilled? Are you quote unquote where you want to be? And here's where you can exercise all the willpower in the world. If you just can't throw these things away or give them away, resist ever using them again. Give them to your kids to play in the sand, or let your kids do experiments with the scales, or I don't know, make a picture out of them. So that's step 3, get rid of the dieter's tools. And now I'm at 29 minutes. Okay, step 4 is be compassionate towards yourself. That sounds easy, right? Just be nice to yourself. But when the whole world around you is dieting and everybody's so euphoric about how much weight is melting away in the latest craze, the grapefruit diet or the leek soup diet or the French women don't get fat diet, it's so hard not to get sucked into that one last diet trap. It's so hard not to sit at home scrolling through Facebook and think to yourself, oh my God, look at that before and after picture. That's what I want. I'm going to do that. Whatever she's doing, that's going to work for me. But if you can start to notice when your mind is going there, instead of beating yourself up, be compassionate, show yourself some love and kindness, and get mad at the diet industry for using you to keep themselves rich. I urge you to show yourself some compassion and have patience with yourself instead of blaming yourself for another diet, quote unquote, failure. Because while we can intellectually understand something to be true, like the concept that diets don't work, we can read that and say, yeah, that makes sense. It takes time to peel back the personal layers of the onion of your life and all the pain and all the habits and everything else that has led us to exist in the diet mentality. Okay, so those are the 4 steps to reject the diet mentality. Take these, spend some time working on them, think through them, rewind the video, listen to them, or get the book. And obviously I don't get paid. I just love the book. And journal how those steps might play out in your life, difficulties you might have. And if you find that you're having trouble getting your mindset switched so that you can work through this first principle, which is reject the diet mentality, and you need some support in working through these issues, let's set up an appointment where I can focus all my energy on just you, because everybody comes to this journey at their own pace, with their own history. I've been working on this for months and I'm still working on it. Their years, you all have your own quilts of life experiences and personal stories that color how this journey will go for you. But I have the information and training to help you work through some of these issues. So let's get together and help you start your own journey of recovery, because I've been there and I am there and I know what it's like. I know how you feel, and it sucks to feel crazy about food. That's how I have felt for a lot of my life, is I just feel crazy about food. Why can't I just be like one of my best friends who's like, it's no big deal. It's just fuel. I just need it to power my beautiful body. And some of you watching know exactly who I'm talking about. Sometimes it's just so easy for some people. And I look at those people and I'm like, what's wrong with me that it's not easy for me? Well, I've had a different life and I've had different life experiences, and those led me to make this difficult. And obviously I'm supposed to learn something from it. And that's what I'm trying to do here, is make it all worthwhile by sharing what I've learned and what I'm going through with you guys, so that hopefully somebody out there watching can, number 1, feel like they're not alone, and number 2, realize there's hope out there, because there is a light at the end of the tunnel and I can see it, and I'm treading water sometimes and sprinting towards it sometimes, and the light is so bright, you guys. It feels so good when you start to see the beautiful possibility that is living as an intuitive eater. And that's all I have time for today. My husband just walked in the door. He's going to make a bunch of noise. So I hope you enjoy today's workshop. Thank you so much for continuing to tune in, and please feel free to share so we can spread the word about intuitive eating. I don't want anybody to suffer in silence, because I know how awful it is to live life feeling badly about your body and blame yourself when society says you should look one way and your body just won't comply. Instead of hating on ourselves, let's fill this world with joy and happiness and support people who are actively working towards making themselves happier and better and more grateful and productive citizens. So I hope you'll join me next week. I'm so sorry I went twice as long as I wanted to, but this was a big one, so I needed to put a little effort into this one. But I hope you'll join me next week when I talk about fat phobia, which is the fear and or hatred of fat bodies. And when I say it like that, it sounds really mean. And you might sit there and say all indignantly, I'm not guilty of being fat phobic, but next week, I might share some things that could make you scratch your head and realize, oh, shoot, I have done that or said that or thought that, and I didn't even realize. Until then, though, feel well, be well, and stay happy. Bye for now.